You're listening to Overhead Story Channel. Enjoy.
I've heard people say that the truth rarely screams. It whispers. And when it does, you either listen or you learn the hard way. For me, it started on a Sunday afternoon. Nothing remarkable about it, just one of those lazy, in-between days where nothing's happening but everything feels like it could. I was supposed to meet a buddy for coffee, but I'd left my laptop charger in the bedroom and ran back inside to grab it. Haley was home, somewhere downstairs. I remember hearing the dishwasher humming. For some reason, that sound sticks with me now, like the backdrop to the beginning of something I didn't want to see. When I opened the bedroom door, I knew something was off before I even reached the desk. I always left my laptop on the far corner, screen down, plugged in. I'm a creature of habit that way, same morning routine, same order I get dressed, even the same route to the coffee shop. But my laptop wasn't on the desk. It was on the bed. Open. That alone wouldn't have rattled me. But then I saw the message. Just one. Miss you already the second you left. That was it. Nothing more, no name attached, just a little gray avatar, a timestamp from 20 minutes ago, and that line staring up at me like it had a heartbeat. At first, my brain short-circuited. I stood there, blinking at the screen, waiting for it to make sense. I thought maybe it was a friend or some pop-up from a newsletter I didn't remember subscribing to. But no, this wasn't spam. This was personal. This was an asterisk, mate. It read like someone who had just been with her. Someone who didn't expect her husband to walk in and read it. I was still standing there, halfway between disbelief and denial, when Haley came in. She didn't say anything at first. She just stopped cold in the doorway, eyes flicking straight to the laptop like a heat-seeking missile. And without breaking stride, she crossed the room, shut it with one hand, and gave me a smile I'll never forget, not because it was warm, but because it wasn't. It was tight, like she'd practiced it in the mirror for a situation she never thought would actually happen. "Oh, that," she said, breezing past me like nothing happened. "Just work stuff. We've got this annoying group chat going for the new rollout, and everyone's been acting weirdly sentimental lately." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My brain was still trying to stitch her explanation over what I just read. She picked up a laundry basket, adjusted her ponytail like it was just another afternoon chore, and walked out without waiting for a response. And that was it. No elaboration. No, "Hey, what exactly did you see, or do you want me to show you the conversation?" Just a quick shutdown, both of the laptop and the conversation. She left me standing there in our bedroom, holding my charger like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. Now, here's the thing, I wanted to believe her. That's the worst part. I wanted to believe her so badly that for a second I did. I nodded to myself, told my pulse to calm down, grabbed the charger, and drove to the cafe like I hadn't just walked through a door I couldn't unsee. But the voice in my head wouldn't shut up. You know the one. The one that picks at details like loose threads. It started pointing out the tone of the message. The phrasing. "Miss you already the second you left." That's not a coworker being sentimental. That's not someone at a desk in a cubicle. That's someone lying in a bed, still warm from her presence, texting her like they didn't get enough of her. Still, I pushed it down. I buried it under years of marriage, inside jokes, shared playlists, and grocery lists. I told myself, you're being paranoid. You're tired. You've both been stressed lately. Work's been brutal on her. Maybe she is just getting close with her team and they're all being weirdly emotional. God knows startup culture is full of forced bonding. But the seed was planted. And once it's there, it doesn't go away. That night, I noticed things I hadn't before, or maybe I had, but I hadn't let myself linger on them. Like how she kept her phone face down on the table. How she tilted the screen away slightly when she typed. How she smiled at texts but didn't offer them up for commentary the way she used to. We used to sit on the couch and read each other memes or snippets of drama from her group chat. Lately, her phone might as well have been a locked vault. When I brought up the message later, casually, like I wasn't walking a tightrope, she shrugged it off again. "I told you it was just a weird message from Nate. He's being dramatic because he's leaving the project. He says stuff like that to everyone." I nodded. I even laughed a little, like I was in on the joke. But inside, I felt something slide sideways. I didn't know it yet, but that was the moment something cracked. Not loudly. Not like a plate smashing against the wall. More like the sound of glass cooling too fast, inaudible to the ear, but splintering just the same. The next morning, I opened my laptop and the message was gone. Not archived, gone. Whole chat history wiped. I checked the email tied to the account, searched the name, Nate. Nothing. No Nate in her inbox. No Nate on her LinkedIn either, which was strange because she'd said he was part of her team. I didn't ask. Not again. Some part of me already knew that if I pushed, I'd hear another version of the same story. Something work-related. Something half-true. Something just plausible enough to make me feel like the crazy one. From the outside, everything was still fine. We ate dinner together. We laughed. We watched shows and folded laundry and made small talk about the neighbors. But there was a layer missing, like I was watching someone I used to know through a pane of glass. I could see her. I could hear her. But I couldn't feel her anymore. I didn't tell anyone, not my brother, not my best friend, not even the guy I sometimes vented to during late-night gaming sessions. Part of me was embarrassed, like I'd already failed just by asking the question. But I didn't stop thinking about it. I didn't stop remembering how fast she shut the laptop, how quickly her expression hardened, how she deflected without asking me what I saw. And most of all, I couldn't forget the way the message felt when I read it, like someone else had already claimed the part of her I thought was mine. You don't realize when things begin to change. Not right away. The big betrayals, the dramatic moments, they get all the attention. But it's the little things that rot the foundation first. The things you ignore. The excuses you accept. The lies you tell yourself just to get through another day. After I saw that message, "Miss you already," the second you left, something shifted in me. Quietly. Permanently. I didn't bring it up again, but I couldn't unsee it either. I started noticing everything. Every pause. Every flicker of her eyes. Every detail that didn't quite add up. I became hyper-aware of our routines, how they changed, when they changed, and why I hadn't noticed sooner. Her late nights at the office had become more frequent, but I had chalked them up to the demands of a new client. She said they were under pressure, that they were behind on deliverables, that her manager was a nightmare. I believed her because, well, that's what trust is. Or what it used to be. But looking back now, I remember how rehearsed her explanations sounded. Polished. Just enough frustration in her voice to make it believable, but never enough detail to answer follow-up questions. And her phone, God, her phone. She used to leave it everywhere. Kitchen counter. Coffee table. Bathroom sink. Sometimes she'd even ask me to answer it for her if her hands were full. But over time, that changed too. Her phone became a permanent fixture in her pocket. Always on silent. Always face down. She had also started locking it, something she hadn't done in years. At first, I didn't think much of it. People changed their settings all the time, right? But she didn't just lock it, she started guarding it. If it buzzed while we were watching TV, she'd shift slightly, angle the screen away, check it quickly, then put it back down without a word. I told myself she was just dealing with work stress, that I was overthinking it. But that's the thing about hindsight. It turns every innocent moment into a clue. Every laugh you didn't hear. Every touch that didn't happen. Every excuse that sounded just a little too perfect. I remembered one night, a few weeks before the laptop incident, when she came home wearing a different perfume. Subtle but noticeable. I asked her about it and she smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Swapped with a coworker on a dare, she said. She wanted to see how it smelled on someone else. I had laughed. God help me, I actually laughed. Thought it was quirky. Thought it was funny. That kind of trust, naive, loyal, unconditional, it doesn't grow overnight. It's built over years. Which is probably why it hurts so much when it dies. Then there were the shirts. Men's shirts, 2 of them, folded into our laundry. Both unfamiliar. Not mine. One was a white button-down, the kind with French cuffs. The other had a sports team logo I didn't recognize. When I asked her, she barely blinked. "Oh, those are probably from that charity drive I did last month," she said. "They were collecting donations, remember?" I had to sort through a bunch of stuff in the office. I wanted to believe that. But now I remember how the shirts smelled, subtly different from anything in our house. Like cologne I didn't wear. Then came the trip. Haley had to travel for a 2-day leadership conference out of town. She seemed weirdly excited about it, even though she usually hated leaving home. Said it was mandatory. The company booked the rooms, she was just going to put in FaceTime. I offered to drive her to the airport and she hesitated for a second too long before saying no. Said she was carpooling with a colleague. I didn't press. I wish I had. She came back with no souvenirs. No stories. No photos. Just exhaustion and a short fuse. When I asked her how it went, she said, "Fine. Boring. You know how those things are." I didn't. I remember one night, lying next to her in bed, listening to her type something on her phone. The glow from the screen lit up her face and she was smiling, the soft, almost shy smile I hadn't seen in months. When I asked who she was talking to, she tilted the phone slightly and said, "Just Mandy. She's venting about her boyfriend again." Then she kissed me on the cheek and turned away. I told myself it was fine, that I was imagining things. But the smile? That smile was real. And it wasn't for me. We stopped touching somewhere in that time. Not all at once. It was more like a slow erosion. A kiss missed here. A hand not held there. She stopped reaching for me in bed. Started sleeping with her back turned. I told myself she was tired. That we'd reconnect on the weekend. That it was just a phase. But phases don't leave gaps in receipts. They don't come home with different energy like their soul's been pulled towards someone else. I started finding those 2 receipts from places she never mentioned. Bars across town. Cafes near parks we never went to. Lunch spots she hadn't brought up once. I asked her about one and she said it was a team outing. When I asked why the receipt was for 2 people, she looked at me and said, "You think I'm cheating on you?" with this expression like I had just kicked a puppy. That shut me down. It always did. She had a way of flipping it, of making me feel like the crazy one for asking. So I stopped asking. I started keeping things to myself. Making mental notes. Connecting dots I didn't want to connect. Even her playlists changed. That sounds stupid, I know. But music tells you a lot about someone's mood. Her old ones, bright, upbeat, the kind of stuff we used to dance around the kitchen to, started getting replaced by softer, slower songs. Melancholy. Longing. Lyrics about distance and secrets and wanting things you can't have. She played them when she thought I wasn't listening. But I always was. And yet I still didn't confront her. Maybe part of me didn't want to know for sure. As long as it wasn't confirmed, I could pretend. I could say we were just in a rough patch. That all couples go through this. That eventually we'd find our way back. But in my gut, I knew she had already left. Not physically. She still came home every night. Still sat across from me at dinner. Still kissed me goodbye on her way to work. But emotionally? She was gone. She had crossed some invisible line I couldn't follow her past. She smiled at her phone more than she smiled at me. She was always distracted, always somewhere else. I'd talk and she'd nod, but she wasn't hearing a word. And yet, she still said, "I love you," every night. That's what made it worse. Those 3 words spoken out of habit. Emptied of meaning. Performed like clockwork. Sometimes I'd say it back just to see if it felt real again. It never did. So I held it all inside. Let the warning signs pile up like unopened mail. Until I couldn't ignore them anymore. And I think the part that hurts the most is realizing I saw it all. Every flag, every signal, every lie hidden behind a practiced smile. I saw it, I just didn't want to believe it. Because believing it would mean letting go of the version of her I fell in love with. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. I didn't plan to come home early that night. In fact, I had every intention of staying late at work. There was a deadline I could have buried myself in, some numbers I needed to clean up before the end of the quarter. But around 4:30 something shifted. A feeling, maybe? A pull I couldn't quite explain. I told my boss I had a headache and needed to head out. He nodded, distracted, didn't even look up from his screen. I drove straight home without thinking. No music, no podcasts. Just the hum of the engine and the quiet voice in the back of my head whispering, "Go now." When I pulled into the driveway, Haley's car was already there. That wasn't out of the ordinary. She worked remotely some days. But it still made something inside me sit up. I noticed 2 things the second I opened the front door. 1, the house smelled different. Faintly floral, sharp cologne I didn't recognize. And 2, silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that feels like it's trying too hard to hide something. I stepped into the living room and froze. 2 wine glasses. Both still half full. One had a smudge of lipstick on the rim. The bottle was sitting between them on the coffee table, red, the expensive kind she always said was too indulgent for a Tuesday. But here it was. Open. Breathing. Her coat was tossed carelessly over the back of the couch. Not folded. Not hung. Just thrown. And on the coffee table? Her phone. Unlocked. Screen glowing with a paused Spotify playlist I didn't recognize, some sultry acoustic mix that wasn't hers. Or at least, hadn't been until now. I walked quietly through the house. No sign of her. The bedroom door was open. Bed made. Lights off. But the bathroom. Steam. Still clinging to the mirror. The fan was humming softly and the scent of body wash hung thick in the air. Not hers. Not mine. Some kind of musk, masculine. New. I stared at the condensation on the mirror like it might tell me something. But all it gave me was a distorted reflection of a man I didn't recognize anymore. I didn't yell. Didn't call her name. I backed out slowly like I was trying not to disturb something sacred or rotten. The house felt haunted. I walked out to the backyard and sat down on the deck steps. My breathing was shallow. I wasn't sure if I was angry or just hollow. I pulled out my phone. Opened the security camera app we'd set up months ago for the back door. The one Haley insisted we install just in case. I hadn't checked it in weeks. Didn't have a reason to. Until now. The footage loaded slowly. I scrolled back an hour, fingers trembling, sweat slicking my thumb. There he was. A man I didn't recognize, stepping out of our back door. Dark jeans. Rolled up sleeves. Tall. Confident. He didn't run. He didn't look guilty. He adjusted his shirt as he walked out as if buttoning it back up. Then he tossed something, flowers, maybe, into the trash bin by the fence. He stopped for a second, looked around, and then walked down the alley like he had done it a dozen times. I watched that clip 3 times. Each time, something inside me cracked a little more. There was no ambiguity. No more wondering, no more guessing, no more maybe. This was it. The truth. The real kind, not whispered, not subtle. Loud and cold and undeniable. I didn't wait for Haley to come back downstairs. I didn't confront her. I walked into our room, pulled out my old duffel bag from the closet, and started packing. Not everything, just the essentials. A few shirts. My laptop. Phone charger. My toothbrush. Socks. Nothing sentimental. Nothing that could be mistaken for indecision. I moved on autopilot, methodical, efficient. Like a man escaping a burning building. She didn't hear me. Or maybe she did and didn't want to come out. Part of me hoped she would. That she'd appear in the hallway with wet hair and a towel around her shoulders and say something, anything. That she'd stumble through some explanation, as pathetic as it might be, because even a lie would be easier than the silence. But she didn't come. And I didn't wait. I left the wine glasses. I left the playlist. I left the ghost of the man in the backyard and the floral scent clinging to our towels. I walked out the front door, closed it gently behind me, and didn't look back. I didn't go far that night. I checked into a cheap motel off the interstate. Nothing fancy, just a room with stiff sheets, buzzing lights, and a chair that creaked every time I shifted my weight. But it was quiet. And empty. And honest. I sat on the edge of the bed for hours, fully dressed, staring at the wall. At some point, I opened the security app again and watched the video a 4th time. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to hurt myself with it. Maybe I wanted to remind myself I wasn't crazy. That everything I'd felt, every suspicion, every gut punch I'd swallowed was real. Tangible. At 2 a.m., I texted my boss and told him I needed a week. No explanation. He didn't ask for one. Just responded with, "Take care of yourself." I turned off my phone after that. I didn't want to see if Haley had messaged me. I didn't want apologies or questions or whatever version of herself she thought might still work on me. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. I kept thinking about the wine glasses. The way they sat there, side by side, like nothing was wrong. I wondered what they talked about while I was at work. Did they laugh at my expense? Did she walk him through our house like a tour guide? Did she use her bed? No, don't go there. But the thoughts kept coming. You don't get to unknow things. Once the proof is there, it starts to spread. Infecting memories, unraveling every moment you once thought was safe. I thought about our first apartment. Our road trip to the coast. The night we danced barefoot in the kitchen after too much wine. Were any of those real? Or were they just setups for a betrayal I didn't see coming? At 5 a.m., I got dressed, grabbed my bag, and left the motel without even checking out properly. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew it had to be somewhere she wasn't. Somewhere I could finally breathe without wondering what was hiding in the next room. Somewhere I could stop pretending. Because now I had proof. Not a gut feeling. Not a strange message on a screen. Not an unfamiliar cologne or a missing receipt. Proof. Undeniable. And with that, the decision made itself. I was done. By sunrise, I was parked at a rest stop 2 hours outside the city, drinking the worst coffee of my life and watching 18-wheelers pass like ghosts. I hadn't slept. Didn't feel tired either, just empty. Like my body knew rest wasn't an option until I figured out what the hell to do next. I kept staring at my hands. They didn't look like mine. They looked like some other guy's hands, older, worn down, maybe the kind of guy who ignored red flags until they strangled him. I still had my wedding band on. I twisted it absent-mindedly, not sure why I hadn't taken it off yet. Part of me wanted to throw it out the window. Another part of me wasn't ready. Not because I still loved her, God, no, but because taking it off would make everything real. I couldn't go back. That was the only thing I knew for sure. I couldn't walk into that house again, see her face, sit at that table like we still shared something. Because we didn't. Not anymore. And so, I started planning. I found a diner up the road, one of those places that looks like it hasn't been updated since the 90s, vinyl booths, faded wallpaper, a waitress who called me Han without looking up. I ordered pancakes, mostly to keep myself grounded, and opened my laptop. The same one she shut so quickly days before. Funny how something so small could ripple out and break your life in half. I opened a private browser and searched how to disappear from your own life. That sounds dramatic, I know. But it wasn't about running. Not exactly. It was about retreating with intention. About building something that didn't have her fingerprints on it. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to ask for answers I'd already found. I was going to vanish. The first thing I did was open a new checking account at a bank she didn't know. Transferred what I could from my savings, just enough to live lean for a few months. I didn't touch her joint account. I didn't want her to notice anything yet. Not until I was out. Then I canceled all the recurring subscriptions tied to my name, streaming, cloud storage, everything. It felt symbolic. Like I was shutting down all the digital noise that made our life feel normal. After that, I logged out of every shared platform, Netflix, Hulu, even our grocery app. I changed the passwords on my personal accounts, deleted apps I didn't need, and turned off location sharing on my phone. Every step felt like cutting a wire. By noon, I had a list. Open P.O. Box. New SIM card. Find short-term housing. Notify work. Close social media. I drove to a strip mall on the edge of nowhere and picked up a prepaid phone. Activated it with a name that wasn't mine. Just the essentials: calls, texts, no internet. I'd only use it when absolutely necessary. The other phone? I'd keep it on silent for now, but soon I'd shut it off for good. Then came the hardest part, telling my job. I'd been at the same company for almost 8 years. It wasn't just a job. It was part of my identity. But I knew I couldn't keep living the same routine. Couldn't walk into the same office and pretend I hadn't been gutted. So I emailed my manager. Told him I was taking a personal leave. Health issues. No elaboration. He was understanding. Corporate always is, as long as the paperwork's clean. Next, I started looking for a place to land. I didn't want anything in the city. Too many shared memories. Too many places we'd been together, restaurants, grocery stores, sidewalks where we used to laugh like we were invincible. I needed somewhere quiet. Isolated. I found it by accident, a listing for a lakeside cabin 4 hours north. Small, furnished, Wi-Fi included. Meant for writers, apparently. The owner described it as a place to breathe. That sold me. I called the number. A woman answered with a warm, sleepy voice. Said it was available immediately. No lease required. Month to month. I booked it for 2 months up front. By the time I closed my laptop, the diner had cleared out and the waitress was wiping down the last few booths. I tipped her more than I could afford, packed up my stuff, and walked out into the heat. I didn't go home. I drove to the nearest Target and bought the basics: a few changes of clothes, socks, a blanket, notebooks, batteries, a water filter, toiletries. Everything I thought I'd need to start from zero. I checked into another motel that night. This one smelled like bleach and regret, but I didn't care. I laid everything out on the bed like I was preparing for war. And in a way, I was. The next morning, I woke up at 6 a.m., checked my email, and saw that my cabin reservation had been confirmed. Directions were attached. It was remote enough that GPS barely worked. Perfect. I drove to a storage unit on the edge of town and rented a small space under my name. Dropped off anything I didn't need immediately: extra clothes, boxes of books, some gear I might use later. It felt good to let things go. Then I went back to the motel and sat in silence. That night, my phone buzzed. Haley. Of course. I didn't check it. Didn't need to. I imagined her coming home to find my things gone. Maybe she panicked. Maybe she didn't. Maybe the guy from the backyard had already filled the space I left behind. Didn't matter. I was done handing her pieces of myself she didn't respect. The next morning, I left the city. Didn't say goodbye to anyone. Didn't leave a note. Just drove. Past gas stations, cornfields, old churches. Past all the noise of a life I no longer recognized. When I finally pulled up to the cabin, the lake was calm. It was just after sunset. The water looked like melted glass. Trees whispered in the breeze like they were trying to welcome me without making a fuss. The cabin was small but clean. A bed. A desk. A fireplace. Shelves full of paperbacks. The kind of place where time didn't matter. I unpacked slowly, then sat on the deck and listened to the crickets. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting for anything. Not a call. Not a conversation. Not an apology. I just breathed. That night, I slept without dreams. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Full of everything I hadn't been able to feel when I was with her. I didn't notice how much noise she brought with her until I was finally out from under it. And not just her voice, though that too, but the pressure. The subtle, constant hum of trying to measure up to someone who was already halfway out the door. At the cabin, the days passed without structure. I woke up when I wanted. Made coffee slowly. Read books I hadn't touched in years. Wrote in a journal not because I had anything profound to say, but because I needed to prove to myself I still had thoughts that were mine and mine alone. The first few days, my phone stayed off. It sat in a drawer like a ticking bomb I refused to engage with. I lived off the prepaid one, which didn't ring. Nobody had the number. But the curiosity eventually got to me. On the fourth morning, I turned my old phone back on. The screen lit up like a Christmas tree. Dozens of missed calls. Voicemails. Texts. All from Haley. The first ones were short and panicked. Where are you? Are you okay? Call me back. I'm scared. I don't understand what's happening. Then they shifted. You can't just disappear like this. It's not fair. I get that you're mad, but this is cruel. Talk to me. After that came the guilt trips, the dramatics. You abandoned our marriage. I didn't expect this from you. You're acting like a coward. Running away instead of dealing with things. I scrolled through all of it, sitting on the porch with the lake in front of me, my coffee untouched. Her words didn't hurt the way I thought they would. They just sounded hollow. Like echoes bouncing off a version of me she no longer had access to. A week passed before the tone changed again. I'm sorry. I didn't mean the things I said. I was scared. I didn't know how to react. You're right to be hurt. I made a mistake. Actually, more than one. There it was. She never said the word affair. She never named him. But she didn't have to. It wasn't just a moment, okay? I was in a bad place. I didn't plan for it to go that far. It's over now. It ended badly. He's gone. He meant nothing, not compared to what we had. I reread that last part a few times as if it might rewrite itself. It didn't. She sent pictures too. Of the house. Of the dog I didn't get to say goodbye to. Of herself, a hair tied up, no makeup, sitting on the edge of our bed like she thought looking vulnerable might make the difference. I miss you. I miss us. Please come home. But there was no us anymore. Not really. Still, something about her last message stuck with me. My family won't speak to me. I told them everything. The truth. I didn't sugarcoat it. I thought they'd understand. But they didn't. I lost more than I realized. I believed that part. Not because I pitied her, but because it sounded real. Painful. Human. She'd always leaned on her family for everything. Sunday dinners. Advice. Validation. If they had turned away, it meant she had finally run out of people to shield her from herself. That night, I walked down to the dock and stood there barefoot, the planks cool beneath my feet. The stars were out in full force, scattered like a promise I couldn't quite read. I wondered if she was staring at the same sky. If she was still hoping I'd come back. And for the briefest moment, I almost wanted to. Not because I forgave her. Not because I missed her. But because I missed who I used to be when I believed she loved me. I missed feeling certain about something. I stayed at the cabin week after week. I kept writing, kept cooking simple meals, kept walking the trail behind the property until I knew every route and bend like muscle memory. The air was clean. The nights were quiet. And slowly, the part of me that had been clenched for so long began to loosen. One afternoon, after I'd come back from town with groceries, I saw another email waiting. From Haley. But this one wasn't like the others. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't begging. It was reflective. I know you probably won't read this, but I needed to write it anyway. I've started therapy. I've been going twice a week. I've learned a lot about myself. About how easy it is to hurt people when you don't understand your own damage. You didn't deserve what I did to you. And I don't expect you to forgive me. I just hope, in some part of you, you can believe that I'm trying to be better even if you never see it. I'm sorry. For real this time. I sat with that one for a long time. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. But because I didn't need to. Her apology wasn't for me anymore. It was for her. And that was okay. Later that week, I drove into town and bought a used camera. Nothing fancy, just something I could carry in my pocket. I started taking photos of things that made me feel calm. Tree bark. Reflections in the water. The steam rising from my mug in the morning. Nothing artistic. Just proof that I was here. That I existed outside of what she had done. One night, I pulled out our wedding album from my storage bin. I hadn't looked at it since the day I left. The cover was dusty. My hands hesitated before flipping it open. We looked happy. Maybe we were. Or maybe we were just good at pretending. Either way, I didn't feel grief looking at the pictures. Just distance. Like watching someone else's life through glass. I put the album away. The emails kept coming, less frequent now, more honest. She talked about how her new job wasn't working out. About the foreclosure notice on the house. How she didn't have the money to keep it. How empty it felt walking past the places we used to fill with laughter. She said she hadn't seen the other guy since everything fell apart. She said she missed my steadiness. She said I was the best thing that ever happened to her. That one made me laugh, quietly, bitterly, the way you laugh when you realize someone only values you once you're no longer in reach. I didn't tell her where I was. Didn't give her the new number. I knew if I did, it would pull me back in. And I wasn't about to let her narrate my story again. Instead, I sat with the quiet. I let the anger soften. I didn't rush to replace her. I didn't chase closure in someone else's arms. I gave myself space. The kind of space you can only find when the last voice in the room is finally your own. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't need anyone to tell me I was doing the right thing. I already knew.